Welcome to the Root of Power podcast, where I teach you how to step into your power, find alignment, and create a life that you love using holistic methods, interviews with industry leaders, and inspiring stories from people who know that true freedom is found within. I'm your host and health and wellness bestie, Amanda Chills, and I'm so proud of you for choosing to step into the root of your power. Hello. I have got a freebie for you guys. If you want to learn to get more in touch and in tune with your emotions, a process that we call embodying your emotions, as in feeling them in your body, I have got a free guide to do just that. If you go to amandachills.com/communication, it's free. That actually helped. Okay, hello podcast fam. We are here with Becky, and she is the owner, genius behind Full on Purpose, which works with your Enneagram. And you may say, what the heck is an Enneagram, Amanda? Well, friends, that's why we have Becky here to tell you. So, welcome to today, I guess. I don't know. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. This is super exciting, and I loved our interview that we did together, so I was totally cool with jumping on and doing one with you. So this is great.
Fun. I love when we make connections and it's like we help each other.
Yeah. And I love the world of podcasting too, because it's basically we're letting everybody eavesdrop on our conversation, and that's it's that technical.
Yeah. And I tell everyone I'm a counselor because I'm nosy. Well, I also love to help people, but nosy.
So totally. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So tell us about you.
Yeah, so I live in Louisiana. I have 3 beautiful children and a husband, of course, who's wonderful. And I'm a health coach and a life coach. And so I realized I had the mindset part, I had the body part with the food and nutrition. So I was like, okay, what else is there that I need to look into? So I started studying the Enneagram and just realized, okay, there's some different drivers that are going to help us to relate with each other, understand ourselves better. Some things that we thought maybe quote unquote were wrong with us are just how God made us, which I love. And so just diving in, the deeper I get in, the less I feel like I know because it expands.
Right.
So yeah.
I think that's a hallmark of awareness with knowledge too, is the more you know, the less you know.
Yeah. So
how did you get into health coaching?
So it started with postpartum depression with my first son. So he's 9 now, and just gained a lot of weight, and my emotions are all over the place. I didn't realize it was postpartum back then. I have a lot more knowledge now to be able to recognize the signs. I thought my first kid, it's just hard. I'm a school teacher, and so my job is stressful. I'm up all hours. So I just assumed this is just what motherhood is, and I'm just not doing a good job. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. So, and that it kind of started back then. So that was 2014. When I was feeling that way. He was born in 2011. I had another child in 2013. Had another major surgery in between there. So my body was just not really recovering well.
Yeah.
And so it started where I really was focused in 2014. Okay, this is a lingering depression. This is not baby blues because I've got 2 kids now. My second one's 1. I don't think it's supposed to last this long. So just started looking into it, looking at how food affects your body, looking how sugar affects your mind. With my first son, I had gestational diabetes. So I was like, oh, well, that's not going to have anything to do with anything else later. Yeah, right. So I've struggled with insulin resistance and all those types of things. And so that's really how I got started with the health coaching part. And then also for my husband too, we both kind of have a lot of mood type things that happen. And so for him and I, we worked together looking at food. He started hitting the gym really hard, lifting weights. Nice. I didn't. I was like,
it's not for everybody.
I can work on the food part and walk with my daughter. That sounds good.
Why not?
So, yep. And then part of the health coaching program was that they offered a life coaching certification if you wanted to. Ooh. So I was like, yes, let's keep going. So absolutely. Yeah. So that's how I got started.
Now, can you explain what the difference is between a health coach and a life coach?
Yes. For a health coach, we're going to be more focused on how to put foods together, which foods you'd want to look for, which foods you want to avoid. It doesn't, the way that I learned it, it doesn't follow any particular protocol. So it's not keto, it's not paleo, it's not anything specific. Although I do have certifications like as a keto coach as well. You can branch off from that and learn more about the specific diets. But really, with health coaching, it's just understanding who you are when you're eating, where you're eating, what you're eating, how you're eating.
So more nutrition focused.
Yeah, a lot more nutrition focused. And then with the life coaching, and you do have some, they do intermingle really. They work together hand in hand. But for the life coaching, it's more about understanding how to be connected with that which is greater. So whatever that means for you, for me, that means God. So being connected with Him, understanding, that you need a higher power to be able to help. And then also understanding your relationships with other people, not to the depth of the Enneagram, but just understanding how you interact with other people, how to keep your mindset right, that kind of thing. So one's to me more physical, one is more spiritual, emotional.
Okay. Yeah. So you blend all of those then. So I imagine when someone hires you that they get the whole like umbrella, if you will.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because and that's what I realized. When I first started, I was like, oh, I'm just going to change my food and then everything's going to be great. Yeah, no, didn't work. So it's like, okay, yeah, it did help. It did help. And I'm like, oh, it's my mindset. It's my mindset. So I changed my mindset, didn't focus much on the food. And I'm like, oh, I still feel bad.
Crap.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, my mindset's good. My food's good. Now my relationships, and now I'm struggling with my kids or I'm struggling with my husband. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So yeah. It's totally all intertwined, and just separated is really just to work on one part of who you are.
That's why I like practitioners who are truly holistic, meaning they take all the systems into account. So we've got a ton of wellness practitioners who say they're holistic, but they don't take into account spirituality. They don't take oppression or systemic racism or poverty or access to healthcare or any of those things. They don't take nutrition into account or movement. I think for me, what I'm seeing so much of a lack in this space is movement and how it's connected to your brain health and neuroplasticity, and the crap that you eat has an effect on your mood. So it's really hard to tell someone like, it's your mindset, reframe your thoughts, rewire your brain. Like that con artist snake oil BS. This is a rant and I'll end it in a second. And these people don't take into account like literal forces that people deal with. So they're not holistic. So I love that you have both and you truly take a whole person perspective. Like if you're just changing your diet, you can only do so much. If you're not connecting with a higher power, if you're not connecting with other people, you can only do so much. So I love that you're doing the whole thing. Now, how does the Enneagram work into all that?
Yeah. So, and I do want to say another point too to what you were just saying. I think whenever somebody starts, they're like, what's going to be the path of least resistance? Because we're human and that's just what we do. And so I do want to speak to the fact that if you start with your nutrition and you just start there, understand that that's a good thing and you're doing a good job. Right. So start there, but realize that's not where you end. So joining a Facebook group, joining 21-day reset program, all of those things are amazing. I've done them. I've run them. I have them now. But doing that in isolation is our point. You can't just do one thing and expect a complete turnover. And maybe you will have it at first, like, oh, I've lost, 40 pounds. I feel like I have my life back. You're soon going to hit a roadblock and be like, well, okay, I'm not as happy as I first was. Why not? And that's how that's how the dieting world works, which is why I hate it so much. But just understand that you don't have to change everything all at once, and we don't want you to change everything all at once.
Right.
So please don't take that away from what we're saying. Start with one thing, do it well, and then just know that this can't expand, and that's a great thing. It's a journey, and that's perfectly fine.
And everything is intersectional. So your diet affects your mood, affects your relationships, affects your sleep. Like it's all intersectional. For people who've never heard that term before, you're welcome. Everything intersects.
There you go. There's your word of the day. You can go around and use it and sound really smart.
SAT word of the day, people.
There you go.
Sectional.
Send out an email with your word. I get those word of the day. I don't know if you do. I get words of the day and I'm like, I can't even read the word of the day. So for me to remember what the definition is, I'm just going to have to unsubscribe because this makes me feel really stupid.
You know what's funny is I started getting like, I don't know if other people have this. I'm sure we do. Like, I started getting a word of the day. It was like genius of the day or some whatever.
Mhm.
But I never signed up for that email. So I don't know where it came from.
Oh, yeah, I didn't either, but I thought maybe I did and I just forgot. But yeah,
No,
it was just random. It just
I'll like
started.
unsubscribe.
You know what? I wonder if it's connected like with Quora or something because Quora, like I've been trying to unsubscribe for like 3 years. I'm not even kidding. There's so many segments of it, like you unsubscribe from one thing and it's like, oh, but you're subscribed on
Nice.
another thing, and I get like random things in my messaging. I'm like, what does even have? How am I even on this thread? Like it has nothing to do with anything I do.
Email campaigns are sneaky,
Yeah.
but they have nothing to do with Enneagram. So,
No. No. So for the Enneagram, the thing that I love about it is it will encompass all of the different things that you have. So the thing I like to talk about is the core motivations, because whatever your motivation is going to be is going to drive all of these other things that we're talking about. How
okay.
you eat, how you approach relationships, how you handle stress, especially right now. How are you relating to the pandemic? Things with the election. Also your core longings and then your weaknesses. So whereas somebody can jump into a new eating plan and do it perfectly, never, fall off the wagon, quote unquote. And then you try it and it's like 3 days into it, you're caving and you're like, oh, I'm just not good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you're just built differently and it's just how you relate with things. So understanding who you are at the core, what your motivations are, what your weaknesses are, what your longings are, will give you direction into all these other things. So although I'm studying this at the end, really if I would have had this in the beginning, it would have branched off into all these other things so much better. So I'm kind of flipping the script on everything and starting from truly like what your podcast, truly at the root of what's happening.
Love it. So Enneagrams is something I heard about not super long ago. So I'm very new to them. So imagine I am me, who doesn't really know anything about Enneagrams.
Oh, it's gonna be hard.
I'm just me. Now there's 9 of them. Like, so they are subsets of your personality. They are like, when you say their weaknesses, motivations, whatever, what does that mean?
Okay, so there are 9 general ways or general types of people that view the world in a certain way. So 9 different view types, if you want to think of it that way.
Sure.
Of course, there are multiple levels of each kind. So don't feel like the Enneagram is going to box you in. I hear that a lot. I don't want to be boxed in. I'm like, well, just wait a minute. Jump in the box that you think is most like you, and then we can dive in deeper and then find where you fit.
Because people can have subsets, right? So you can be like mostly a 6, but also a 2 and 4.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Now, a lot of people, too, will usually narrow in on their top 3 types. And then I say, okay, from there, you can dive in deeper. What are the motivations, etc. And then you're going to really go with one that you're going to feel is more intact. So would you like for me to run down what the 9 are so people can kind of hear? Okay.
Please.
So, and like I said, you can be more, everybody is all of these at some point. It's just one's going to have more weight for you than another person.
Okay.
So type 1 is a moral perfectionist. So these are going to be people who want to be right. So their core longing, or their core desire, is to have integrity and be good. So these are going to be, everything's organized because that's what's right. Their homes are clean because that's what's right. So that's going to be something that drives them. For a type 2, they're going to be your supportive advisor. So these are the people who are, I like to call them the helpers. They are going to help everybody. They're the ones at your family gatherings that's going around to make sure everybody has enough food. And they're going to help you get the food, whether you want it or not. They're going to help you, depending on how healthy of the number they are.
Right.
Yeah. A type 3. So I'm a type 3, the successful achiever. And so our core desire is having a high status or being respected, being admired, successful. Okay, so we are lifelong learners. We're always wanting to get more certifications and things like that. For a type 4, it's the romantic individualist. So their desire is going to be unique and special and authentic. Musicians, artists, trying to think of something else.
Probably some entrepreneurs.
Yeah, entrepreneurs, people who don't want to fit into a mold of any kind.
Okay.
Okay. A type 5 is the investigative thinker. So a lot of analytical type jobs are going to fit with a type 5. Engineers, people who are going to want to figure out how something ticks, understand all the facts about it, be able to break it down and see how everything works. So yeah, so they want to be capable and competent. That is their core desire.
Okay.
For a type 6, this is my husband. He's a loyal guardian.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? So they want to have security, guidance, and support. So the type 6 I like to think of as like a bodyguard. They're going to be looking around. They're going to be thinking worst case scenario. But if they're a healthy 6, they're going to think worst case scenario in that, hey, well, let's look at this before we jump in and make sure that this is going to work. Or could we think of it from this way? And an unhealthy 6 is going to be like, we're not going to have enough food. We're not going to have enough money. Always on panic, anxiety.
Like the very spectrum end of the anxiety.
Yes.
Right. Sky is falling. Okay.
Yeah. But a healthy type 6 is a wonderful, wonderful help to you because they're very good at problem solving and seeing, okay, that might not work.
Okay.
Type 7, entertaining optimist. These are our fun people. They love hosting parties. They love traveling. Anything that's fun, they're all about it. So their core desire is to be happy, fully satisfied, and content.
That sounds like me.
Yeah, I would say probably. Yeah,
I think it might be.
Have you taken the test?
Yeah, so when I first heard about it, I like really love personality tests, which is another reason why I'm a therapist. I'm like, let me figure you out. Let me help you figure yourself out is really what I do. So I took it and I was a 7, and then I think the one that you said, what was a 4? What was the 4?
Romantic individualist.
Yeah, I think probably those are my 2.
Mm-hmm.
Fun. Okay, what's number 8?
Yep. So for 8 is the protective challenger. So an example of a protective challenger would be Martin Luther King. So he is, there's several different 8s. A lot of times when people think of an 8, they think of someone who's a very strong personality. They, like the top of the business ladder, they're going to dominate the room because their core desire is to be protected.
Protective or protected?
Both.
Okay.
Protective of their insides, of their feelings. They don't want authority to be, they don't want to be controlled by authority.
Okay.
But then the protective part is for those less fortunate, those who can't help themselves, that type of thing. They want to be protective of those people. And then for a type 9, these are the crown of the Enneagram. They are the peaceful mediators. They kind of keep all the rest of us in unison if they're at a healthy level. So their core desire is to have inner stability and peace of mind. So these are the people who, if there's any kind of conflict, they're just going to shut down because they don't want to fight about anything. They want everything to just be peaceful. And, sometimes it's not realistic to do that. But for them, that is their mechanism of like, I'm just going to shut down. The family's fighting. Like, imagine a mother who has 2 daughters that are fighting against each other. She has trouble getting in between it because she doesn't want any kind of conflict.
Right.
So that's like a 9 million, foot view of the Enneagram.
So it's interesting when you talk about these because, and we can go into this or not go into this. It's just something that I was thinking when you were saying. Some of them sound like family patterns or trauma responses. So for example, if someone shuts down when there's conflict, that's a trauma response because you never learned how to deal with conflict, how to tolerate your own emotional turmoil so that you can put it aside and then solve the problem or whatever. Protective, trauma response. You, thank you, Kat. Apparently he's protective.
He's like, it's me. You figured it out.
It's me. So some of those things are a trauma response. Like if you are always organized, perhaps you grew up in a home where everything was chaotic and this is how you respond. So I don't know how much that plays a role, although everything we go through shapes our personality and who we are. So I would imagine it plays some role. And it sounds like when those numbers are, you say imbalance and it translates in my head, or you say unhealthy and in my head it translates as imbalance. So one is too much. So if you're too protective and you can't access the other numbers, then it causes an imbalance. Does that make sense? Like, is that true? Am I like way off the base?
No, this just shows how good you are at what you do. Because it is absolutely part of childhood conditioning, part of, I don't know all the fancy words like you have, but yes, it is from the childhood messaging. Yeah, it really is, because one of the examples, like for school that I went to, which is your Enneagram coach, she talks about, and I'm not going to get into all the numbers of it, just an example to give you an idea.
Sure.
You know, a child goes into timeout because they were not listening.
Sure.
So they go into timeout and the parent accidentally forgets that they're in timeout.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So for one child, that's going to interpret into, I'm not important. For another child, it's going to interpret into, I'm forgotten and I have to protect myself. For another, it's going to translate differently. So different things that we have are going to translate based on kind of the bare bones of what we already start with, like the material that we already start with, and then how these messages come to us will shape us for when we get older. So a lot of times, like a type 8, not always, so just keep that in mind, but sometimes, like for a type 8, perhaps they had parents who worked a lot, or parents who were not attentive, or they lived in a home with a lot of turmoil or addictions or whatever, and they grow up saying, I have to be tough on the outside, I have to be defensive, I have to protect myself. And think about, they have siblings. I have to protect those who can't protect themselves. So I'm the big boss. I'm the one that has to make sure that the world does not attack. Okay, so that would be like a type 8.
Yeah, I actually run into that a lot with people who experience childhood abuse.
Yes.
They become so, like, in order to kind of heal that wound, they become so protective over anyone who they view as mistreated.
Yes.
Interesting. So it really sounds like it gives people a framework to understand their own behaviors and like reactions in certain situations.
Yes, I would say so. I can give a personal example. So I am working with an Enneagram coach myself, like as a client right now. And so an example would be if I feel like somebody is one-upping me, quote unquote, let's say it's for Christmas. If they are wanting to buy a gift that I wanted to buy because my kids have said, oh, I just want to get this. And I'm like, all right, I am on a mission to get whatever it is that they wanted. Yeah. And then, somebody says, oh, well, I wanted to get that for them. It just rocked my world. Like, this happened yesterday. It rocked my world, but like, it so should not, because it means my kid will get the gift and I have the money to buy something else now. Like, that's stupid, like on the logical level. Right. But like, I was almost in tears about it. And I started thinking, okay, and of course I'm like, all right, put on my counselor hat here, what is it that you're feeling? What's triggering? Why are you doing this? Yeah. The thing that I love about the Enneagram is that it allows you to see your responses to things, just how you naturally react, but it also helps you to look into where are some of those wounds that you didn't even realize were there. Because really what it's rooted in is, as a type 3, our core fear is being exposed, thought inconfident, worthless, failing to appear successful.
Yeah.
You following me? So somebody else buys the gift for my kid. 1, I didn't feel their need. 2, now the other one is the best, quote unquote, because they got the gift, right? But really it translates into that we do things to earn love. So the more that I do, the more I'm loved. So if I'm not doing this for my child, I feel like I'm not going to be loved as much from them. And I know that's kind of a silly example, but it's literally happened yesterday. Because it
happens like, all the time.
What in the world is happening? Why am I so upset about this?
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's what I love about it, because it allows you to look and be like, why? And the thing I like to say is the Enneagram is like, why did I do that? Or why do I feel this way?
Yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned that, because I was literally teaching this last night, like how to experience an emotion and not shame ourselves, which is what I'm hearing the Enneagram allows people, like, So my brain is very visual, so I'm imagining like a trellis that like ivy grows up. Like
Uh-huh.
it gives them a structure and a framework to grow. That was a good one. I should write that
Ooh,
down.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, hey brain, you stop.
Hey.
Sometimes I look for my glasses that are on my face. That's fine.
It's all about
It's
keeping,
balanced.
yeah, keeping you balanced there.
um, so it gives people a framework to grow and not to shame themselves. What I find clients do all the time is they shame their reactions, and
Yes.
that doesn't. We think it leads to change because we are shamed for our reactions, but it doesn't. It's just demotivating, and then we feel like crap, and then we're in this like crap cycle, and it sucks. So
Yep.
having a non-judgmental framework to say, oh, this is an archetype, right? Which is really what an
Hmm.
Enneagram is. It's archetypes to say, why am I reacting this way? Oh, because my pattern, my personality that, I adopted
Yep.
is the protector, is the helper, is the mediator. And then it sounds like it gives us a lens to say, like, just to gain insight. So, like, when you work with clients and they start gaining that insight, what changes do you see? Or what changes have you seen in yourself?
Yeah. So for me, I like to think of the Enneagram as, because I'm visual too. So I like to think of it as like a flashlight. And so in the
Yes.
very beginning, it's going to shine a light onto this is what's happening. This is what's
Mm-hmm.
behind the scenes. It's not that you're crazy. It's not that you're broken. It's not whatever. This is just, let's just look at it for what it is, take emotion out of it and just look at it.
Yes.
Yes. And then I like to think of it as a compass because it says, okay, here's the roadmap that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to take it to the compass and see the direction that you're on right now, the path that you're on, the mindsets, the beliefs that are taking on. Where are they going to lead you?
Love
Is
that.
this taking you to where you want to be? Or do we need to course correct just a little bit?
Can you
And
repeat
then
that?
which part?
That. I just
Yeah,
want people to hear it again
yeah.
because, yes.
Yeah, just using it as a roadmap, using it as a compass, because a lot of times we see where we are right now. We can't see where we're going, but
Mhm.
using it with the flashlight, using it with the compass, it will show you exactly what path you're on and where you're headed. And then you get to make the decision before you get there of what to do.
Preach. I'm like, if I could scream on this podcast and not hurt everyone's ears, I would scream right now. So it allows you the ability to take a step back
Yes.
and say, what am I doing? What happens if I continue to do this? And I always call that like a space. In that little
Yeah.
bitty space, you get to say, is this the life that I want? Is this who I want to be? And what happens if the answer is no?
So for me, I take it to the third step. Once I understand, excuse me, I understand where I'm going, deciding if I like it or not. I like to use it as a rumble strip, like on the highway, like you're falling asleep
Oh,
and
yeah.
it wakes you up. So I
Yeah.
like to use it to say, okay, now I understand how I am at a healthy level, where I am, where I'm like kind of healthy, but kind of struggling a little bit, and then where I'm just completely drowning. And so
Yeah.
the rumble strip helps me to know, oh, you're veering off course. You said you wanted to go here. You're headed in a different direction. We need
Yeah.
to just kind of, pivot just a little bit and see where
Sure.
to go. So it's just been amazing,
I
in my
love
marriage with my kids, all of it, because
it.
it just opens your eyes to all kinds of things, and then understanding them and like, oh, that's why you got mad when I did this, when
Yes.
I'm like literally standing there, have no idea why he's angry.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's his childhood wounding, it's
Mhm.
mine, it's this, it's whatever. So
And it helps
it's very
us,
powerful.
I think, I call that process depersonalizing. I don't know what other people call it.
I
But
like it.
when we recognize that our reactions aren't about the other person, this is so funny because I was just talking about this last night, and their reactions aren't about us. It allows us to have more compassion too, because now if we're not taking it so personally, it gives us that space to say, why are you doing this? Oh, it's because blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you, my boyfriend has a thing about like I ask a lot of questions because I don't understand things, and I like to understand things. I want them to make sense so that I can accept them. That's what I need.
You're four.
Number four. So I ask a lot of questions. When I was working, like for other people, it would often be termed like insubordination. But I was just like, I just want to understand why we have the policies that we have. Or like last night with my boyfriend, I was like, well, why we were cooking burgers in the oven. And he said, well, we have to flip them. And I said, why do we have to flip them? Like, I don't understand why. And he was like, why are you questioning everything I do? And I was like, because I don't know why we would do that. And I just want to know. So it comes up in like so it doesn't have to be big things is kind of the point I'm making. It can come up in everyday things if you are, for example, maybe on an extreme, and tell me if this is landing, like if you are a helper and you get together with a partner who loses their job, sometimes on the unhealthy spectrum, that can become an enabler.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And two, okay, let's use the example of a two. And so for
Remind
a two, do what?
Remind me what a two is.
The helper.
The helper. Okay.
The helper, yeah. So for a two, as a helper, you're driven and you very generalized, but you understand love through you helping other people. Mm-hmm. That's what fills your bucket. Okay.
Yeah.
For others, it's going to be different things, but for a two, helping is what just lights them up. Mm-hmm. So if you are married to, let's say, an 8 who does not want to have anybody in charge, anybody telling them what to do, that kind of thing. And you're like, oh, and they lost their job. We'll use the example that you have. Well, they lost their job. Well, first of all, they're like, fine, I'm just going to find another one and I'm going to go out and do whatever.
Sure.
And then the two's like, let me help. And the 8's like, leave me alone. I can do this on my own. I'm strong. I'm this. And it turns into this power struggle where really both of them are just trying to get love because they want to protect their family because that's their job. They have to protect them and make sure they're safe, which means they have money, which means they have safety in a home. They're not going to lose their house. They have, food on the table, which comes from the money. So they're driven by that. And while they're doing that, they're not paying attention to their type 2 helper because their focus is about getting this because now I'm not loved because I'm not protecting.
And that's not the language that they speak.
It's not. Another example of that is you have the different triads. So you have like groups of these numbers. There's 9 numbers, so there's 3 groups. You have the heart triad, the head triad, and the gut triad. So, and it's not real important right now which numbers go in which, but like, for an example, I'm a 3 with a 2 wing, but I have 4 parts of me as well. So I'm literally the whole heart triad. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I can be a hot mess a lot. Whenever I'm like all in my feelings and not paying attention to the rumble strip here, and I'm just like all over the highway. Okay. Whereas, I'll give you an example. My dad, he's an investigative thinker. He's a type 5. So here's the facts. Here's this. Here's whatever. So here's 14-year-old me. Oh, my boyfriend broke up with me, Daddy. I'm just so upset. And he's like, well, why did that happen? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just upset. And I'm like wanting to talk about my feelings. And he's like, I'm trying to get the facts of what happened here. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about the facts. I want to talk about that I'm hurting right now. And he's like, it's not that he didn't want to be sensitive. Right. It's just not his language. He feels secure in having the facts. I feel secure in feeling like you hear me and you understand that I'm hurting and you recognize that I'm hurting. And so there's this disconnect that happens, and that happens a lot with married couples because they're like, why don't you want to spend time with me? And he's like, well, because I'm a 5 and I need to recharge, and that's literally how I recharge. And for me, I'm like, I recharge by being with people. So, I'm wanting to spend time with him. He's trying to run away. Like, no, I've got to have time. And once you understand that, then it's like, oh, he just needs to recharge. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Then it's very empowering.
Are Enneagrams how we receive love or how we communicate love, or are they just a framework for understanding the world and like our place in it? Or is it both?
It's both. Okay. I feel like you can, to me, it boils down to the motivations because you have a weakness. So that's the thing you're always trying to quote unquote fix or trying to get away from. You have a core fear, which that's actually what you're running away from. The core weakness is usually just what you struggle with.
Okay.
And then you have a core longing, which is just what you want to hear, like the ultimate compliment. What would just make your day feel amazing?
Yeah.
And then core desire. So this is what you're always working towards. So I think where the love would come in is if you're struggling a lot with the core weakness, you feel it makes you feel like a failure. And so you feel like you're not earning love or you're not obtaining love that way. And then on the opposite end, if you have your desires and all that kind of stuff, then you feel like you have love, but it's going to translate for people differently. So it's kind of a tough question. So yes, it does, but I think it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
It's not necessarily love language. To me, the love languages would be more
Right.
accurate with that. But this does, you do have different Enneagram numbers that are going to incorporate with the love languages. So, but I think you need both to really have a true picture of that part.
Now, who developed this? Like, where does it come from?
Oh, it comes from a few different places. I don't remember the person who originally started it, but it branched off. There's been lots of different branches from it. They have revamped it. They've changed up some of the different people. I mean, different numbers. And then like the lady that I studied under, she's taken this and mixed it with the gospel. So like it's evolved multiple different ways. So there's lots of different origins with it, but
Is there like one institute? So like, for example, the Myers-Briggs type is like, there is an MBTI institute that like,
right.
They set the standard. Is Enneagram the same thing?
No, not to my knowledge. Now I could be wrong on that, but my understanding is it started, I mean, like 1800s or something like that. And then different people kind of ran with it and branched off in different ways. Because you have more of like a scientific approach to it than you have on the opposite end of that. You have more of the Christian part of it. And then you have some that are just in the middle. There is an Enneagram Institute that is a company, but they did not start the Enneagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Related question, why do you think humans love personality tests so much?
I think we're just curious. I think we're curious beings. I mean, I know I like it just because I'm like, ooh, why do I do that? Like, I'm kind of like you. I'm like nosy towards myself. Like, oh, help me understand this. So I think just in general, we're just curious. And then also it could be too based on the wounding that we had as children, longing for completeness. I think we're always looking for that wholeness in general. And so using personality tests will allow us to uncover those places that we don't know about yet or that we don't understand that can bring wholeness to us.
I think they're interesting too because humans are like really just metaphor machines. So when I think about Enneagram, like it's like getting like an affirmation card or a tarot card. It's like general enough that we insert our own meaning into it, but specific enough that we feel like it applies to us. And then we build out a story and a metaphor, and like that's really how humans make sense of the world. Like
birds, they have their own story. Yeah.
But humans are such metaphor makers. So I love that Enneagram is like a metaphor, and that's why the archetypes work so well for like a framework on why do we do these things and where does this come from. And it really like I love that you highlighted earlier, like it gives you a choice to stay in this pattern or tweak the pattern as needed. And I would imagine, but you'll have to tell me if this is something that Enneagram coaches do or not do, is help people like tap into different numbers at different times so they can like play to their strengths. How does that work when you're like teaching someone to do that?
So that's where it dives in way deep. So grab your scuba gear.
Take notes.
Yes. So, and of course I won't go into all of that right now, but it's just in general, whenever you are a healthy version of yourself, meaning that you are understanding the patterns that haven't served you and that you're grasping the ones that do and that move you forward. A lot of times you'll take on characteristics of other numbers. Okay. So like a 3 and a 6 and a 9 will be connected. So like a 3, if they're going to be unhealthy or not in alignment with themselves, not being true to themselves, they will gravitate towards a 9, an unhealthy 9. So a 9 is just going to throw up their hands and say, forget it, whatever. And I'll give you an example of this when the pandemic hit in March. So I launched my podcast in February, and I'm like really high, excited.
Yeah.
Oh, I did it. I launched it on my birthday. I mean, it was awesome. So that was February 24th. March hits. My kids are home. The
Right.
teachers have no idea how to do social, the learning stuff, digital
Right.
learning stuff. We don't know how to do it. Everybody's stressed out. Everybody's whatever. And I just completely halted. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what, I know everybody did. So this is not an extreme example. It hit everybody by surprise, but like, I didn't know what to do. And so I became an unhealthy 9 and just completely gave up. I threw my hands up. I didn't work on my business at all from March until, I want to say maybe August.
Yeah.
So
That's
just
quite
completely
a
jumping back.
yeah.
Yeah. But then for a really healthy version is you'll go towards a 6, which is funny since I'm married to a 6. But you'll go towards a healthy version of a 6. And so you become more loyal. You become able to look at a business idea instead of guns a-blazing, like, let's do it. Let's just do whatever and we'll figure it out as we go. Well, I mean, that's how I work. So,
Yeah.
but then going towards a 6, a healthy 6 at that point, you'd be like, okay, well, this might work, but I do need to look at X, Y, and Z. I do need to pay attention to whatever. So it just helps you to be more grounded. So even though you are a certain number, like I said before, you're going to be all of them at different times.
Sure.
And so in a healthy state and an unhealthy state, you're going to gravitate towards different things. And it's like the lattice work that you were talking about, or the trellis. You'll be able to grow up it, and you may go to the side and all, through the back and through the front and whatever, and that's okay as long as you're moving towards, an upward direction.
So it's funny that you say grounded, because in my head I hear fluid. So for me, the way that I think about it, and being able to transition into different like states, if you will, is the ability to move without much friction into what you need to be in that moment. So like to me, the epitome of thank you. The epitome of human health to me is fluidity.
Yes.
And like frictionless transition. So for me, I teach a lot about emotions, and a lot of people, I've recently had a lot of people with like panic attacks or anxiety attacks, and they say, I'm on medication to stop them. I'm so, I worry about having one. And I said, what if you just let it ride? What if you just had your tantrum, which is, I use that word because we never stop children having tantrums, right? They just ride and then they calm themselves down. They recalibrate themselves.
Right.
And so something I found has been really, really helpful for people, especially with like anxiety attacks, is just have the anxiety attack. It's not going to last forever. You're not going to die. It will come down, and then the next one won't be so bad. So then we don't have all the fears with having the next anxiety attack. And what if I'm around people and blah, 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 blah. Because when we don't allow ourselves to transition naturally to be who we need to be in a moment and to fluidly move between them, we get stuck. And that's when the friction happens. So that's how I like translated what you said.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the title of a book, I don't know if you've ever read it. It's called Hurts, Habits, and Hangups. And so,
sounds brilliant.
Yeah. And it's based on, so my husband had 5 years, well, he had longer than 5 years, but he struggled with addiction for 5 years. And we've been married for 10. So he's been clean for 5. He struggled with 5. So we're on the other end now. But that was a book that was suggested to us because of that codependent and addictive behavior together, how we were just in that dysfunctional cycle. And so the thing that I love about the Enneagram is because it helps you identify your hurts, habits, and hangups so that you can have that, more fluid, because that's what gets you stuck is you're like, okay, you have this, whatever, it triggers you. Now you're mad. They don't understand why you're mad. They say something, now it triggers you more. Now you're upset and you're stuck in this cycle over and over and over and over.
Yep.
So the Enneagram helps you to say, oh, wait, I think this is going to come across, like for me as a 3, this is going to come across as being controlling. I need to reword this so that he understands that I'm actually on his side and saying, listen, I'm thinking of what might happen. So I'm trying to be on that level with you and tune into your frequency. I'm not trying to take over, you know? So that's what I love about it. It just helps identify those 3 things to me.
All right. So how do people work with you? How do they find you? You said you have like resets, you have courses. How do people are like, man, Becky knows her SHIT? Like, how do they connect with you?
So the most active place right now is probably Facebook. So I have a free group. It's called Full on Purpose Hangout. And then, thank you. And then, of course, I have a podcast, which is Mama Meets Enneagram. So do lots of interviews with people like you who just bring it and help. Yeah. And I also have a free mini master course about core motivations. So
Awesome.
if you want to have the link to that, it's about 30 minutes long. It comes with like a PowerPoint thing. So if you don't want to listen to me ramble for 30 minutes, you can just look at the PowerPoint and get the information.
Listen to her. It's good.
But it'll help you to identify the core fear, desire, weakness, and longing, so you can pinpoint what your number is, and at least have a better understanding. So
That gives people a beginning.
yes, gives you your
Okay.
framework.
Now, do you work with people in a group setting only, or do you do individual coaching? What does that look like?
Yeah. So right now I'm not doing either one. Right now I'm focused on getting the podcast episodes out so that I can kind of build the framework for when people do work with me. I can say, okay, let's go back to episode what have you. I feel like that'll help. So I'm kind of right now just giving information and doing it that way. But I will soon have a course. I've been working on it behind the scenes. So yes, it's in the works, but it's not out yet. So yeah.
So they can find you on Facebook. We will link the website. We will link the masterclass, all of those good things. We're at about 45 minutes. So anything that I missed that I don't know to ask because Enneagrams are new to me?
No, I think one thing would be to, if you're going to take a test about it, just there are paid tests, because this is what I get asked all the time, which test to take.
Yes.
And so the test that I personally like is with your Enneagram coach, which is where I went to school. So it is based in the gospel. So if that's in alignment with you, then that would be the test to take. If not, you can go to the Institute. What is it? The Enneagram Institute. If you just Google that, they do have a paid test that is not based in any type of anything. It's just straight Enneagram.
And you feel like those are more accurate, the paid test?
The paid tests are more accurate, yes.
Okay.
I like the Enneagram Coach one because it's free. It takes about 20 minutes to do, and I'll give you the link for that one as well. Yeah. But I like the way that they explain it. Once you get your number, they will give you just information at the bottom. I just feel like it's easier to understand on just without having any foundation of the Enneagram at all.
Yeah.
To me, some of the other stuff are a little bit more like getting into the weeds of things, and it's like it's too much. I don't understand it. So this to me just gives you a really good overview. So you take the test, 20 minutes long, go back to my website, take the mini class. So you'll have your top 3 from the test that you took. And then go take the mini class, look at the motivations, and you should be able to narrow it down from there.
Awesome.
Without spending a penny. There you go.
Yeah. Yay. Pandemic cheap.
There you go.
Are you going to have your own test someday? Is that something that you would like to do?
Maybe for fun, not to do the types, because it's just so like, I feel like I would study forever and never and ever and ever and never think it was good enough. So I see that that being something that would just take me a million years. So I leave that to people who are more 5s, more analytical. They can look at that stuff. So if I had one, it'd probably be like, which hamburger are you based on your Enneagram? It would be something totally not helpful, but super fun. Super fun. Yeah.
What to order at In-N-Out Burger based on your
Name. Yeah, that's more up my alley. Yeah.
Or like Chipotle.
Yeah. What color are you? What
color are you?
What should you name your dog? Yeah. Stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but it's just really
fun. Just fun. That's funny. So what would you like to leave our listeners with?
I would like to say that everyone deserves grace, and everyone is at the way I like to think of it is a different level of light, a different level of understanding themselves. And so give grace and be patient and understand that everybody's at a different place in their journey. They don't know about you, you don't know about them. So just accept them for someone who is on their own journey.
Powerful. I love radical acceptance. I think it's life-changing.
Yes.
Just accept everything. Doesn't mean you have to like it.
Nope. Doesn't mean you have to be mean either.
True.
Yeah.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. This has
Will
been
you
really
name
fun.
your Facebook group one more time and your website one more time, and then we will link everything.
Totally. So I'm full on purpose, FULL on purpose, all over on Facebook and Instagram and my website. Those are all the same. And
Is it fullonpurpose.com?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You can do fullonpurpose.com/Enneagram and you'll get the masterclass and you'll get the test. They're both linked there.
That's hard to spell.
Yes. And then, yeah, I'll type it out. And then it's Full on Purpose Hangout on Facebook. Hangout.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay,
It's been amazing.
you. Y'all, Becky has since rebranded her podcast and going in another direction. But if you would like more information on Enneagrams, please let me know. And I'm happy to refer you to another resource. And as always, tell me what your favorite part of that interview was, because I'm nosy and I want to know how to better serve you. So if there is something we covered or didn't cover that you want to know more about, please let me know so that I can do a whole episode on it and get you what you want. Okay, y'all be good.